Hello guys, in this video I'm going to talk about data types conversion. The process of converting the value of one data type to another data type is called type conversion. Python has two types of type conversion, implicit and explicit. Alright, let me start with implicit. In implicit type conversion, Python automatically converts one data type to another data type. This process doesn't need any user involvement. Let's see an example. First, I define two variables, an integer and a float. Now let's add our variables and store them in a variable named sum. Now if we print sum, the output is a float. Alright, let's see what happened here and see the type of our variables. Print data type of num1 is type num1. Print data type of num2 is type num2. Print data type of sum is type sum. We can see the data type of num1 is an integer while the data type of num2 is a float. Also we can see the sum has a float data type because Python always converts smaller data types to large data types to avoid the loss of data. By big and small data, I mean floats have decimals and more details. And if Python converted the sum into an integer, the decimal part would be lost. Alright, now let's see an example for explicit type conversion. Imagine we have two variables, num1 equals to 1 to 3, num2 equals to 1 to 3 in quotations. First, let's print those variables. Print num1, num2. As you can see, the result in the output is the same, but because of these quotations, num2 is a string. Alright, now let's add these two variables together. Print num1 plus num2. When we run the program, the output will be type error because we can't add an integer to a string. Let's see another example. Name equal to John, weight equal to 50. The first variable is a string and the second variable is an integer. Okay, let's concatenate these variables without formatting. Print my name is plus variable name plus and my weight is plus variable weight. If we run this code, we will face a type error because we can't add a string and integer together. So the question is, how can we run this code properly without any errors? The answer is converting our variable types together. In this example, we can convert the variable weight to a string. Python has a solution for these types of situations, which is known as explicit conversion. For this reason, Python has a function called str. Weight equals to str weight. So what is this line saying? It says I'm going to change the type of variable weight to a string and I put the new type inside the old variable. So from now on, age is a string. So if we run the program, we can see that the problem is solved. Why? Because we changed the variable weight to a string. Let's check that. As you can see, from now on, weight is a string. If you needed the original variable in the future and did not want to change its type, you can define it in a new variable. As you know, the weight is not necessarily an integer, and it can be a float number. Let's change the value of weight to 50.5 and run our code again. You see that there's no error, which means with str function, we can convert a float number to a string as well. I think with this example, you get the importance of converting data types. Now let's see another conversion type. For example, we have a variable for ratio and it's 25. We can turn this integer type variable to a string and float. We know this is an integer, right? Let's check that. Now let's convert the variable to a float. Here we need to use float function. This function works like a str function, except that it converts the variable into a float. Now let's return the variable to the string again. If we print the type of the variable, we can see that it returns to a string again. Now let's turn it into an integer. To do this, Python has int function that we can use to convert various data into an integer. As you see in the output, the type of the variable now is an integer. Now let's look at a practical example. For instance, imagine we wrote a program and asked the user to input a number and we want to double that number. The input function allows a user to insert a value into the program. But don't worry if you are not familiar with this is not important right now. As you can see, we need to input a number and the program will double it for us. Let's run it. I put 10. You see the answer is 10, 10, which we know it's not true. In fact, the program repeats the input number twice. So what is wrong? The problem is when we input a value by input function, the value will enter as a string. We can't do arithmetics on strings. We need to convert it to an integer or a float. For this purpose, we can use two functions called int or float. The int function returns the integer object from a float or a string containing digits. The float function returns a float point number from a number or string containing digits with decimal point or scientific notation. As you can see, now the answer is 20, which is true. At the end of this video, let's have a summary of the contents. Type conversion is the conversion of object from one data type to another data type. Implicit type conversion is automatically performed by the Python interpreter. Explicit type conversion is also called typecasting. The data type of objects are converted using predefined functions by the user. And be careful when you import data to your projects and when you use input function. At the end, please subscribe to my channel and thank you for watching this video to the end.